discrimination and prejudice. These are the things that we have to do. And these are precisely the skills that all of us, each of us, in conflict resolution is learning. I don't believe for a minute that Mediators Beyond Borders is going to solve these problems. What I'm hoping that we will be able to do is to convince people that who have conflict resolution experience and expertise that they are global citizens and that they can contribute. No matter what it is, everyone in this room can contribute something to making the world a better place. The difficulty for us, as for all organizations, is to find places for everyone who wants to do something. So I wrote a little thing, which is out in the lobby, called What Can I Do? And it's 30 things that are just came to me off the top of my head. There are probably at least another 30, if not hundreds. But there are dozens of things. You have a copy. There are dozens of things that can be done that are very small. We began, of course, by saying join Mediators Beyond Borders because that goes without saying. But truthfully, we aren't actually that interested in promoting ourselves. We're interested in partnerships. We're interested in service. And so what we want to be is a place where people can come and feel like they can do any number of different things. So what would it be possible for a chapter here at Regis University to do? Well, one thing is you could adopt a conflict, right? You could decide we're going to take on Israel versus Palestinian territories, or the conflict between Maoists and monarchists in Nepal, or some of the conflicts that are taking place right now in Rwanda, or any other conflict anywhere around the world that you would care to take on. And we could say, we're going to sort of look into it and figure out what are some of the things that might be able to be done about it. Not everybody is in a position to leave the United States immediately and go to Ecuador to work in the rainforest with indigenous forest dwellers and ranchers and loggers or whatever the conflict might happen to be. That is one project that we are now considering. But everybody might be able to, for example, find a pen pal in a country where there is conflict. Find a list of the names of mediators in countries. We don't have those lists. We don't have the names of people who can be of service. In the chapter that, in Los Angeles in Southern California, we just had an event. Very small event, but it made a little bit of a difference. And what we want to do is to find ways for everybody to make a little bit of a difference. So what we did was, I don't know if any of you ever saw the HBO movie To Die in Jerusalem. Has anyone seen that? It was an amazing movie. It was done by a filmmaker who went to Israel and the Palestinian territories, found the mother of a suicide bomber and the mother of the young woman who was killed. This is a female suicide bomber, a young woman. In fact, when you look at the photographs of these two women, you can't tell which one is Israeli and which one is Palestinian. They look the same. They're almost the same age. And so what they did was they tried to create a dialogue between these two women, the two mothers. And you watch this dialogue, no mediators involved, no setup, no facilitators, nobody in charge of arranging the dialogue, which we know is an important thing. And you can watch this whole thing just become a complete catastrophe, end in misery and defeat. It's a conversation that is absolutely waiting to happen. What could be more poignant than for the mothers of these two daughters who died in this explosion to talk to each other about what happened? And not only did it fall apart, it fell apart in exactly the same way that all the conversations around that conflict fall apart. And therefore, it is a small little metaphor for the whole thing. So what we did was we got a group of people together, no different from yourselves. who wants to volunteer to be a small group facilitator in a dialogue? We train people in dialogue techniques. So we had a group of people who had gone through a little bit of training and were prepared to facilitate dialogue sessions. We opened it up to the entire public. We invited people to come. Over 100 people came. We showed the movie, at least a part of the movie, and then we said, okay, let's talk. And we had a set of questions that every facilitator asked each person to answer in their group. And there were lots of Israelis and Palestinians who came that night. One Palestinian woman at the end of this said, I have never met an Israeli person before tonight, and I want to tell you how much this has changed my life. So it's those kinds of things, it seems to me, that help to build a consciousness of the possibility of conflict resolution, an awareness of the fact that this is not, we describe this as touchy-feely sometimes, and I always wonder what exactly is wrong with touching and feeling. But assuming that there is something wrong with it, this is not just touchy-feely in that sense. We're not just making nice. We're having real serious conversations about the problem, with people really disagreeing with each other about what is the difficulty, but they're not shooting each other. And as Sigmund Freud said, the first man who hurled an insult instead of a rock took a giant step towards civilization. And that is the truth. So the first one who creates a dialogue moves beyond the insult. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to organize dialogues, public dialogues. Who needs to engage in public dialogue? Well, the answer is all those people in the refugee camp. The answer is child soldiers and the communities that they attacked. That's exactly what the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is. It's a form of public dialogue. And we know things about public dialogue, about how to do it. I worked for a while with the Public Conversations Project in Brookline, Massachusetts. Does anybody know about them? Yeah, they're a fabulous group. They do great work. And I helped them design a part of their intervention and some of the questions that they ask. Here's the first question. It's a brilliant question. And this is a question that is asked to spokespeople for pro-choice and pro-life organizations. If you can imagine, in the same room, groups that hate each other, that think each other are the representative of Satan incarnate or whatever it is that they think about each other, evil. But these are groups that have come together with a, well thought out set of reasons why they believe what it is that they believe. Here's the first question. What life experiences have you had that have led you to feel so passionately about this issue? Isn't that a fantastic question? Because instead of getting a diatribe and a speech and a long, well-thought-out explanation, you get a human being. And who can't identify with another human being? And now we've started the conversation going. But if you just do that and you don't go deeper, you may have scratched the surface, but you haven't really come to grips with the underlying issue. And the point of the underlying issue is not to convince someone that they're wrong, but rather to recognize that it is possible for there to be multiple forms of truth. That is, not just a single version of what happened. And don't we know that this is the case? Isn't, in fact, the truth of hot, not inconsistent with the truth of cold? And so there are multiple forms of truth that we can define that are not mutually exclusive. And so the second question that they ask is also rather brilliant, and it is there anything about the position that you have taken, about the beliefs that you have, that you're not 100% certain of, that you would be willing to talk about to somebody else, that you would be willing to engage in dialogue over? Or are you totally convinced that you're right about everything? Right? That's the unspoken part. The spoken part is the first part. But the meaning is very clear. So everybody recognizes right away that, well, there's got to be something, otherwise I'm really being a jerk here. Because nobody can have 100% of the answer to everything. So let me think about this for a second. And it's a very interesting, I've used these dialogue questions myself in different types of forums, and they're profound.